Moscow, mid-1990s. A black Mercedes moves slowly through the rain. Inside sits the boss of the Orekhovskaya OPG, the man whose presence could silence the streets of Moscow. The lights of a luxurious mansion grow closer. Guards stand at the gates carrying automatic weapons. The engine stops. The door opens. The man steps out calmly while the guards greet him with more fear than respect. He walks inside, and one of his assistants approaches him, trembling. "Boss, we discovered that 2 of our men betrayed the organization." He does not answer. He pulls out his pistol. He walks toward the 2 bound men in the basement. One shot, then another. They collapse to the floor without hesitation. He turns to the guards and says coldly,
"Traitors are buried here."
Suddenly, another assistant rushes in, out of breath. Urgent news.
Сегодня вечером был убит главарь конкурирующей банды.
The boss of a rival gang was killed tonight. The man raises his eyes toward the television. The news anchor says,
An unidentified man entered the building, killed the boss in front of dozens of his men, and disappeared.
Everyone falls silent. Then the crime boss mutters,
"That wasn't the work of an ordinary killer. That was the work of Alexander Solonik."
Minutes later, a black envelope arrives at the mansion. The guard opens it quickly. A short message addressed to Orekhovskaya, OPG. "Pay the tribute, or you're next." The boss's face twists with rage. He slams the table violently and shouts,
"Arm every man in this house!"
The guards scatter throughout the mansion. The gates are locked. Weapons are loaded. Night falls over the estate. In the bedroom, the boss stands before a mirror, trying to hide his fear. Then suddenly, he sees the shadow of a man behind him. He spins around. A cold face, a steady gaze, a pistol fitted with a suppressor. It is Alexander Solonik. The music stops. The screen fades to black. Then the title appears. The Real John Wick. Alexander Solonik. But who was this man really? How did a former Russian police officer become the name that terrified the Russian Mafia? And why did crime bosses believe that if he appeared, someone was going to die that night? Alexander Solonik was born in 1960 in the Russian city of Kurgan. He was not the son of a wealthy or influential family, but an ordinary young man trying to prove himself. From childhood, he was fascinated by weapons and military discipline, and when he reached military age, he joined the Soviet Army. After completing his service, he tried to build a stable life and join the police, but his violent personality and great ambition did not fit the disciplined life for long. In the late 1980s, he became involved in armed crimes and went to prison for the first time. There, the incident that began building his reputation in the criminal world took place. The prisoners knew he was a former police officer, and in Russian prisons, police officers were considered natural enemies of criminals. According to the commonly circulated accounts, 8 inmates decided to attack him inside the cell block to establish dominance over him. But Solonik did not back down. He used his military and police training in a violent fight that ended with all 8 men on the ground while he remained standing. After that night, the prisoners treated him completely differently, and his name became associated with strength and danger even before he became a contract killer. After his release, Russia entered the period of chaos that followed the collapse of the Soviet Union. Gangs controlled markets and businesses, and whoever possessed weapons possessed power. There he joined a network connected to the Kurgan OPG, one of the most dangerous Russian gangs of that era. The gang needed a man capable of carrying out difficult assassinations, and Solonik needed money and protection. What made him different from other killers was his style. He was capable of firing with both hands at the same time, and he trained for long hours until his reflexes became frighteningly fast. But he did not rely only on force. He relied on calmness. He would enter a place as if he were an ordinary person, approach the target, execute the mission, and disappear before people understood what had happened. One of the most famous operations attributed to him was against the boss of a major Russian gang who lived inside a fortified compound surrounded by guards, weapons, and cameras. The man was convinced that reaching him was impossible. According to the accounts circulating in the Russian Mafia world, Solonik spent days watching the place and learning the guard rotation schedules and the boss's route. On the designated night, he entered the area in an unremarkable car and waited until the boss came out, heading toward his vehicle. Solonik fired 2 quick shots, and the man collapsed in front of his guards before they realized where the gunfire had come from. By the time the guards began shooting, he had already disappeared. That operation spread his name throughout Moscow as the man capable of penetrating almost any security. Within a few years, he was linked to the assassinations of several Russian gang leaders. Some were killed inside crowded restaurants, others in front of their personal bodyguards, and others inside armored cars. With every operation, his name became more terrifying in the criminal underworld, until the nickname Sasha the Macedonian began spreading among mafia members. By the mid-1990s, Solonik's name alone was enough to cause panic. Gang bosses constantly changed where they slept, while others doubled the number of their guards. One mafia member later said,
"If you knew Solonik was in the same city, you didn't think about business, you thought about how to stay alive."
Then something happened that seemed impossible. In 1995, Solonik was being held in one of the most heavily guarded prisons in Russia. Everyone believed his career was over, but he managed to escape in a spectacular way. It was not merely a prison break, it was a direct challenge to the Russian state. When he disappeared from prison, his story transformed from that of a dangerous criminal into an almost legendary figure. After the escape, he vanished for a short period, then later appeared in Greece using forged passports. There he lived a completely different life, luxurious villas, expensive cars, and private security. He believed he had finally escaped the Russian Mafia wars, but the truth was that those wars were moving closer to him than ever. In Russia, gangs had begun eliminating anyone who could become a future threat. Solonik was one of the most dangerous among them. The man who had carried out assassinations for years had now become a target himself. January 31st, 1997. Athens, Greece. Athens was quiet, and in one of the luxurious villas, Solonik was hosting a guest he knew well. It was neither a police officer nor a journalist, but a Russian contract killer named Alexander Pustovalov, known by the nickname Sasha the Soldier. The 2 men sat talking normally. No argument, no threats, nothing suggesting that one of them would not leave alive. Then, in a single moment, Pustovalov moved quickly. He pulled out a thin cord and wrapped it around Solonik's neck from behind. Solonik tried to resist, but he was completely caught off guard. Within seconds, it was over. The man who had survived prisons, bullets, and ambushes died by strangulation inside his own home. Afterward, the body was moved, and police later found it near Athens. When the identity was confirmed, the news spread rapidly across Russia. Alexander Solonik was dead, The most common account says that the assassination was carried out on behalf of figures connected to Orekhovskaya OPGE, while Pustovalov was associated with the Medvedkovskaya OPGE. But the Russian Mafia world of the 1990s was extremely complex, and many orders were passed through intermediaries, making it difficult to know exactly who issued the final order. The frightening irony is that Solonik spent years killing gangsters in almost the same way, entering quietly, approaching the target, executing the mission quickly, and then disappearing. In the end, he was killed in the very way that made him famous. Alexander Solonik was not just a contract killer, he was a symbol of an entire era of chaos in Russia after the collapse of the Soviet Union. A former police officer who became a legend in the criminal underworld. A man who escaped prisons, terrified gang bosses, and made his name synonymous with death. But in the end, he did not fall to police bullets, nor was he killed in an open confrontation. He fell inside his villa in Athens at the hands of another contract killer. And that may explain the most frightening thing about organized crime. It is not that there are men capable of killing anyone. It is that those men themselves eventually become targets one day. And so ended the story of the man whom many described as the real John Wick,